Good morning, America. How are ya? Monday morning rail. Hi, I'm Denny Jelsma, and I'm at the world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida, where the sun always shines and running trains is a pleasure. And today is Monday, and you know what we do on Monday? You guessed it, we do show and tell. But before we go there, show and tell is always brought to you by Jelsma Graphics, the people that make all the railroad embroidered clothing. So when you need any railroad and embroidered clothing, always go to jelsma.com. That's JELSMA.com. And with all that being said, show and tell starts right now. Well, show and tell is starting right now. I think we're going to have a very exciting show today, and what we're going to do is we're going to just talk to some of our members that are members of the Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum, and just kind of chit chat. You know, when we get together, we talk about all different kinds of subjects about railroading, and we're just going to do the same thing that you can see what we talk about and during our little chat season. And one of the things that this actually does is this helps our learning process and make us a lot better modelers. So I've got two members right here. We have Phil and we have Richard. And so I want to know how you guys really got interested in model railroading, and then what do we kind of do here and that you really like. And so Phil, how did you get started in model railroading?
Got interested in model railroading because of my father, Linus Schmidt, who worked for the Florida East Coast Railroad, and also put a rather large layout in our garage. So we had HO trains, and we would do that together, and so he kind of tied in his railroad work into modeling trains.
What year was that, Phil?
Well, that would have been in the 60s, mid-60s, late 60s. Of course, then went off to school and put the trains away, but got back into the hobby a few years ago. And what I like about the museum here is you always learn some history. It's always fun to run trains, but to me it's a lot more fun when you learn the history behind the train. You learn more about the equipment and a lot of the things that aren't around anymore that are preserved in history, and that makes it interesting.
Well, and I agree with you. You know, I've said this many times here at the club. I've been a member here, 5-6 years or whatever, but I was a member of another club for almost 30 years, and my first year here at the Terminal Museum, I learned more in 1 year than I did for 30 years. And part of that is because we would sit around, just like what we're doing right now, talking about cars, the history of, let's say, Athearn or whatever manufacturing. And there's so much knowledge that is shared here. And so, how have you progressed? And
Progressed to be a lot more selective in what I buy. It's more prototypical for the particular railroads I run. So I pay a lot more attention to things when I go to train shows or when I'm purchasing things for.
Yeah, because when you get a car and the guy says, well, the FEC never had that. And so that makes you a better modeler.
Correct.
Richard, how did you...
How'd I get involved?
Yeah.
Oh, as a kid, I had my first train set as a Christmas gift. My dad helped me put it on a plywood board, and I spent many a pleasant hour just watching the trains go around the track, imagining things. I had two little sidings, and one on each side. No block control, nothing like that. No train isolation. Had two engines, but did not know anything about an isolation track, so that I isolate one and run the other engine. Electronics was not my thing because I was only like 8 or 9 at the time. My dad didn't know anything about that either, so we didn't progress very far. We didn't have a lot of money in the family, and I wanted to start buying some structures to go, sit along the side of the track. My folks didn't see the reason to do that. So I was desperate enough to go to the family trash can, pull out a tossed away cardboard box and cut it up, and that's how I built my first little house with 2 pieces of cardboard on top for the roof. That sat on one siding, and the other siding had my idea of a loading dock, just out of cardboard.
Well, you built a lot of buildings on this layout.
Yeah.
Real quickly, can you name some of them?
Well, my first one was this one up here at the Union warehouse there. After I got married and had kids and life settled down a little bit, I wanted to get back into trains because I had a fun time as a kid with them. I started looking around and heard about clubs. Visited 3 that were here in town and decided to settle on the old Gateway Club that bit down at 5 Points above the old Owens Pharmacy. And I went down there after work on Friday evenings and just hung out for about the first year before I even joined the club. They would let me come in and they were talking and they were just starting to build a layout. And they were interested in building the bench work, the wiring, laying the track, even handling track, and maybe getting to some scenery. They're kind of slow about the scenery end of it, but they had no one that was building industry for the freight trains to be, put the cars at. Some of them mentioned, start subscribing to Model Railroad. There were other magazines they mentioned, but I subscribed to Model Railroad. Took it monthly. I took it for about 20 years. But there was one article in there after, I guess I've been a member for about a year by then. It was talking about a warehouse building. There was just one article about building a 2-story warehouse out of TPM parts. Something about that caught my imagination. Maybe it's because I'm a frustrated architect. I don't know. But something about buildings I like doing, and they had no one that was building buildings. So I jumped on it and built this thing as my first building, minus the water tank. That came later. And they liked it so much, they said, here, put this together. We want it to sit here. Well, it didn't fit that spot. They said, cut it up, make it fit. I'm learning on the job here, so to speak. So I took it home and cut it up to fit.
Well, and also what is so good about the club, we've got so many great modelers and that will help you. And I know I've watched you build certain things like Hilliard. And we had 3 or 4 members made suggestions, and
A lot of the guys would help me with the electronics, the wiring, and what I needed to order online or through the local hobby shop for the lights and the wiring. I didn't know anything about that. So I took their advice and just kind of did what they tell me to do. They gave me advice as to run some bus lines and connect all the wires to it, and they hooked it up, and down at the bottom of the building, have a hole going out for the 2 main wires to connect to the layouts bus wire. I learned all that at the club, just by asking questions and keeping my mouth shut and my ears open.
well, you say that learning here at the club, I'll never forget, I had a passenger car that I really wanted to super detail, and I put American diaphragms on the car, and I'm really proud that I did that. I put some shades and all that, and I bring it here and I'm proud, and lo and behold, Mike Stamey, the guy that what he does for a living is scratch build passenger cars and freight cars for people, tell me I have the wrong diaphragm.
That's because he builds them at a professional level.
And that taught me, and then I learned, there's 3 styles of diaphragms, or actually depending on the car.
You have to learn.
And so he showed us the difference in the diaphragms. And little tiny things like that will just help you grow, and like you say, they teach you how to put in electronics or anything. And I know Phil, when he first started getting back into the model railroad, anything with FEC on it was fine. Well, then he would bring a card, he's proud of it, and we tell him, well, hey, the FEC didn't have it. Now, Now he makes sure that we have the correct call. Well, guys, this is what we do on Fridays when we're done running trains. We sit around and we talk and we learn, and it's just a joy. And that's why I always say it's such a joy running trains at the world famous Jacksonville Terminal Railroad Museum in beautiful Jacksonville, Florida. And that's the way it is.